Okay, hello everyone. Trying to get my hair to cooperate and it's not as usual, whatever. We are continuing reading Love and War, Finding the Marriage You've Dreamed of. We are on the second to last chapter, chapter 11, titled The Chapter on Sex. And I don't think I've read this chapter before, so this is going to be fresh for me and you both. So, here we go. Opening quote. Drink your fill, O lovers. Song of Songs 5:1. And there's a glare. Let's see if that'll take care of it. There we go. Okay. Nope, there's still a glare. There's still a glare. There we go. Alright. Page 175. When we started mapping out this book, we knew we wanted to speak to the issues entangled with sex. But now that we are here, we are having second thoughts. Dear Lord, we're going to include a chapter on sex? What in heaven's name do we say? What stories do we tell? We decided to keep the whole chapter to 3 lines. You need to do it, often, in a way you both enjoy it immensely. If this isn't the case, then you need to deal with why it isn't. 'Cause you need to do it often in a way you both enjoy it immensely. We were only partly joking, but why the need to make jokes? What are we all so nervous about? What is it about sex that makes it the most awkward thing to talk about? One of the classic no-fly zones, even among couples who have been married for years. Do you two talk about your sex life much? With ease? Isn't it because it touches upon who we are, how we are doing as a man and a woman, and because the nakedness of sex is far more than physical? Page 176. Genesis says, now, although Adam and his wife were both naked, neither of them felt any shame. Genesis 2:25. Wow, there is an abandon being described there, a freedom with their bodies, with each other's body, with their sexuality and their selves. What if we could get back to that? I was eavesdropping on a conversation between 2 couples, both empty nesters, about what it's like when the kids are gone. It's wonderful. We have more time for Bible study, one couple said. Bible study? Are you crazy? We get to walk around the house naked and make love whenever we want, the other couple said. Right on. One of those couples is far closer to Eden than the other, and it ain't the one with the concordance on the nightstand. It comes as a surprise to folks unfamiliar with the Bible how much God talks about sex, and with such, shall we say, enthusiasm. The stern commands are only part of the picture, given not in the spirit of, it really would be best if you simply stayed away, but more like the final briefing before new recruits go skydiving. The commands are all protection. They come from an appreciation of how wild and powerful sex is, how dangerous these skies can be, and how glorious. I'm going to pause and just reread that for a second. Hold on. The stern commands. It comes as a surprise to folks unfamiliar with the Bible how much God talks about sex. Okay, right. There are 3 things that are too amazing for me. 4 that I do not understand. The way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a snake on a rock, the way of a ship on the high seas, and the way of a man with a maiden. Proverbs 30:18 through 19. I don't remember that verse. Interesting, that passage. Read the passage again. The author is trying to explore the mystery of sex and using poetry to do it, which is probably the only way. No technical manuals here. Page 177. Did you notice the connections? I forgot to say today is Tuesday, September 20th. Not that that really matters. An eagle in the sky, high and lifted up, rising above the earth. Sex is transcendent. Sex helps us to rise above the pretty little foxes. Excuse me. Sex helps us to rise above the little foxes. In fact, for sex to be good, we have to transcend ourselves as we love one another, which is one of its greatest gifts, to be free, if but for a moment, from that constant self-consciousness that besets mankind. Sex ought to lift you above yourself. It ought to be soaring. A snake on a rock is usually warming itself, soaking in the rays of the sun and the heat radiating from the earth. The poem takes us from the transcendent to the earthly. It is not hot and sweaty. Often Stasi and I draw close to one another and lie there warming ourselves to each other, warming to our bodies again, warming to the act. And when the snake begins to move, it is graceful and undulating. Then the writer uses the metaphor of a ship on the high seas. Holy cow. I wish he wouldn't use that reference. These Bible guys really got it right. Sex as a storm. Sex as a ship carried along by a tempest, waves crashing over the decks, all hands holding on for dear life. We are meant to be swept up into it, carried along by its power and majesty. There is no such thing as, quote, safe sex. This is not something you can control, nor do you really want to. Though Lord knows in our fear and woundedness we do try to control it. The surging power of sex ought to humble us, unnerve us, cause us to want to learn its ways like sailors so that we can at least trim our sails, turn our bows into the oncoming waves, and make the most of the careening ride. To be foolish with sex is to risk violence and destruction. That is where the stern commands come in. But after the storm has passed, we feel a sense of awe, a worship even. God has created the human form and the human heart to experience passion and ecstasy when we are fully loving one another, transcendent, earthy, tempestuous. It is a gift He intended us to enjoy, often. This ought to change your view of God. He is intense about pleasure. At the center of the Song of Songs, as the two lovers are really going at it full throttle, God speaks, and what He says is this: "Drink your fill, O lovers." Song of Songs 5:1. Drink your fill. Let's see if we can find our way back into that. That was page 177, page 178. Subtitle: Wholehearted Sex. You can have sex outside of marriage, as any teenager knows. You can experience orgasm and ecstasy outside marriage, for a time. But marriage is the sanctuary God created for sex, and only there, in the refuge of covenantal love, will you find sex at its best, for a lifetime. The coming together of two bodies in the sensual fireworks of sex is meant to be a consummating act, the climactic event of two hearts and souls that have already been coming together outside the bedroom and can't wait to complete the intimacy as deeply as they possibly can. I want you says it all. The passion comes from the soul. The opening movements of this symphony take place well before there are 4 bare legs in bed. So let us begin here. Sex, when there is love, is the best sex of all. And I'm going to go back to the previous sentence. The passion comes from the soul. The opening movements of this symphony take place well before there are 4 bare legs in bed. So, if you guys have been with me, you know I've got my Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, and I completed most of a Master's of Science in Marriage and Family Therapy program, of which I got mostly A's. Well, one of the courses that we took was called Couples and Sex. Sex and Couples, whatever. And a lot of people in that course were surprised to discover that what people call foreplay is not just a specific behavior or act, or just the first few minutes before actually conducting sexual activity, but it is something that is potentially going on constantly all the time. And I knew that already, and that's what John is getting at here, or Stacy, whoever this is. It is about relationship, and the definition of relationship is the pattern of interaction between two parties, right? And so, just like it says right here, it's passion from the soul. Your soul is where your heart is, your spiritual heart. Your soul, yes, includes your intellect, some of your free will, your emotions, your moods, your feelings, right? How you interact with each other, just in general, is technically foreplay. Giving sex without love borders on prostitution. Demanding sex without love is abuse. We are talking about the intertwining of two hearts as their bodies become one. The more you have that in mind, the better things will go. And so God gave us woman. She is aroused by relationship, by tender words, by acts of strength offered far outside the bedroom and far beforehand. There is a book, if you're interested. It is titled, let me see if I can remember the exact title, Mars and Venus on a Date. I read that years ago. If you want to comprehend the psychology of both sexes, of what arouses them, but what also turns them off psychologically, because that's what it all comes down to, psychology, okay? That's a good book to read. So I'm going to read that again. And so God gave us woman. She is aroused by relationship. What did I just say? Relationship is a pattern of interaction. How you are approaching her, how you are interacting with her. By tender words, by acts of strength offered far outside the bedroom and far beforehand. Thus, the adage, sex begins in the kitchen. I don't know if I've heard that before. Which most men understand as doing it in the kitchen as well as the bedroom. Sorry, fellas, the floor is cold anyway. This is about wooing her heart. Exactly. For a woman to give herself over to her husband fully, which is sex as it ought to be, he has to have won her heart, and won it again, if only in small, simple ways today. I have a memory coming back to me right now. If she is going to be able to abandon herself, she is almost always essential, which is almost always essential to her orgasm, her man is going to have paid attention to the relationship. I remember years back, 2009, summer of 2009, shortly before my ex-husband left me, and again, I do believe that the Lord has revealed to me this past year that he was actually fallen angel people, which makes so much sense now. Him and I went for a walk one day, and on the walk, and things had been very, very, very toxic in that relationship, and not that I was an angel, I definitely was guilty of a lot of stuff, let me just say that, but he was very abusive as well, very cruel. And he just stopped in the middle of our walk and just said to me, I can't quote it exactly, but he said something to the effect of how it was bothering him that we weren't having sex. And I was like, well, things need to change here between us, like, what you think, like, he had this in his mind that I should just be, I guess serving him, servicing him or something, because we were technically married on paper, as if he didn't need to do anything in the relationship, in the marriage. And if that's your mentality, men, boys, you need to grow up to be a man and learn what marriage is really all about. How beautiful of God to do that. It is so arresting. There are no shortcuts. This act is meant to be the climax of intimacy. I have counseled many married women who have told me, I'll give him my body, but not my soul. Exactly, yeah. The reason being that he, page 179, has not won the right to enter her soul, and I would argue he has therefore not won the right to enter her body. When a woman opens herself up for her man, it is an act of stunning vulnerability. This kind of inviting openness can only be won through love and trust. And let me emphasize trust. God thus builds into the sexual mystery an insistence upon love and trust outside of bed. How true to his character. It does not work to come to God for the goodies, answered prayers, blessings of whatever sort, apart from the relationship with him. The treasures are for those who love him and live like it. So true. So it is with a woman. I feel like I need to reread these two paragraphs all over again. Let me turn the AC on. Let's reread all that. And so God gave us woman. She is aroused by relationship, by tender words, by acts of strength offered far outside the bedroom and far beforehand. Thus the adage, sex begins in the kitchen, which most men understand as doing it in the kitchen as well as the bedroom. Sorry, fellas, the floor is cold anyway. This is about wooing her heart. For a woman to give herself over to her husband fully, which is sex as it ought to be, he has to have won her heart, and won it again, if only in small, simple ways today. If she is going to be able to abandon herself, which is almost always essential to her orgasm, her man is going to have paid attention to the relationship. How beautiful of God to do that. It is so arresting. There are no shortcuts. This act is meant to be the climax of intimacy. I have counseled many married women who have told me, I'll give him my body, but not my soul. The reason being that he has not won the right to enter her soul, and I would argue he has therefore not won the right to enter her body. When a woman opens herself up for her man, it is an act of stunning vulnerability. This kind of inviting openness can only be won through love and trust. God thus builds into the sexual mystery an insistence upon love and trust outside of bed. How true to his character. It does not work to come to God for the goodies, answered prayers, blessings of whatever sort, apart from a relationship with him. The treasures are for those who love him and live like it. So the carnal Christians, they don't get the goodies. So it is with a woman. While we are speaking of Eve, notice that God also creates her sexuality in such a way that she often, not always, but often, has a sexual crescendo that requires more time than her man's. He is a stick of dynamite. She is a geyser. He has a short fuse, and then wow, she builds and builds, and then hallelujah. Why would God do this? Why introduce more frustration into an already tenuous and awkward environment? The stark contrast in our arousal and orgasm must have some design to it. This too is absolutely beautiful. There is no wham bam thank you ma'am allowed. What is God asking of a man when he creates Eve's sexuality in such a way that Adam can't just do it? There is a holding back for him, a wooing and loving and foreplay, so that she can be as fully entrapped, enwrapped as he wants to be. Let me reread that. There is a holding back for him, a wooing and loving and foreplay, so that she can be as fully enwrapped as he wants to be. How utterly lovely. It requires unselfishness on his part. Or selflessness. Now, let me, Stacy, turn the tables, lest you think this is an all selflessness for Adam. The scariest thing a woman ever offers is her beauty, right, ladies? And it is our beauty Adam yearns for. It is our beauty he needs in order to be interested and inspired. I'm adding the inspired part. Now I am not merely talking about physical beauty, though that is part of it. The secret of Eve is that every woman holds and hides within her an inner beauty. Every woman. It is her feminine heart, and when offered with her feminine sexuality, it is stunning. Most women doubt their beauty, page 180, deeply. Though I have noticed that when photos are called for at some family event or party, a woman will turn on her beauty for the camera. She will come forth, if only for a moment, so as to be seen as beautiful. There is a choice involved. The beauty of Adam's sexuality is that it requires Eve to come out of hiding too. Men typically want sex more often than women. Though none of these are hard and fast rules, we are speaking in general terms which have proven true down through history. Men want sex more often, and they are more ready for it than women. What does this require of Eve? That we take risks, that we come out of our comfort zone. Most women hide in busyness and efficiency. Every last one of us doubts we have a beauty to offer. And so for a woman to offer herself to her man requires love and courage. It requires her to put him first, even as her sexuality asks him to put her first. Even as her sexuality asks him to put her first. The sexual act is a stunning picture of what a man and woman essentially offer one another in every aspect of life. It is a metaphor, a passion play on what it means to be masculine and feminine. I just can't seem to clear my throat today. I apologize. Subtitle, Strength and Beauty. Permit us a delicate analogy. When they are making love, the man penetrates his woman as he offers his strength. The woman invites the man into herself. If the man will not rise to the occasion, there will be no intercourse, no fireworks. He must move, his strength must come forth before he can enter her. If he is passive, it will not happen. But neither will the love consummate unless the woman opens herself to him. If she is guarded, no union will take place. The man enters his woman and offers her his strength. She draws him in, embraces and envelops him, and that is how life is created. Many things go into a good marriage, but at the core it is essentially strength and beauty. This goes way beyond sex. It is a reality that permeates every aspect of our lives as men and women. A man bears the image of God in many ways, but most essentially in his strength. Page 181. Not with big muscles, but with courage, engagement, and taking the initiative. Ladies, have you ever wondered what the whole superhero thing is all about? Or NASCAR, fight clubs, football, army, hockey? Why do guys love to watch shows like Demolished in 60 Seconds? Why do football players do the little dance thing when they score a touchdown? A man wants to feel powerful. It is essential to his design. Notice that the seductress in movies is often the helpless woman who makes the man feel like a man. I think you are amazing, she says with a bat of her eyes and the signal that that she is all his, and bam, he's hooked. She made him feel powerful. A woman bears the image of God in many ways too, but most essentially in her beauty. Not the perfect figure, but her tenderness, vulnerability, and allure. Guys, have you ever wondered what the whole romance thing is about? The Sense and Sensibility, Bridges of Madison County type movies, pedicures, why gray roots cause her to rush to the salon, why she loves weddings, why she loves romance novels, why she loves to watch the Academy Awards. A woman wants to be pursued. She wants to feel desirable, beautiful. It is essential to her design. Notice that the gigolo in movies is always the man who wants to talk to her, wants to know her feelings, and to make her feel beautiful. You are the most beautiful woman in the world, he says, and I would do anything for you. Bam, she's hooked. He made her feel beautiful. This all plays itself out in hundreds of ways before we ever jump between the sheets. A man offers strength when he simply engages her at the end of his day. He turns off ESPN, turns to his wife, and asks, "How are you?" "Tell me about your day." These things don't always have to be dramatic. A man engages when he protects his wife from a controlling mother. "She's not available right now. She'll call you in a couple days." And when he provides a place for her emotions without being consumed by them and offers tender understanding. Page 182. A woman offers beauty when she offers kindness. The world does not provide tenderness or mercy on a regular basis, and we all need it. Offering your husband a safe harbor for his thoughts, concerns, or doubts, and not giving way to fear yourself is a beautiful expression of your love. I am sorry. I just cannot seem to clear my throat. Seeing your husband's strength and telling him what you see feeds his soul. One of the most priceless gifts a woman can give her husband is the message that she believes in him. He is the real deal. He is a real man. We offer beauty when we do not fear his masculinity nor our femininity. Wearing a pretty nightgown is just one tangible picture of embracing both. For a woman to wear a piece of lingerie feels exceedingly risky. Exactly. It is vulnerable. Letting down your guard and offering your tender vulnerability to your husband conveys a message to him of beauty beyond words. When a man goes passive, it is a compromise of his very essence, and it hurts the people around him. He can starve his wife by refusing to talk to her. He can make her feel utterly abandoned by refusing to engage in her life. That is why a man loves a woman by offering his strength. When a woman goes hard, it is a compromise of her very essence, and it hurts the people around her. She can emasculate her man through her controlling efficiency and her refusal to be vulnerable. She can starve her husband through her busyness and unavailability. That is why a woman loves a man by offering her beauty. Subtitle: Taking Risks. A friend of ours was getting married soon, and I, Stacy here, wanted to buy her something lovely for her honeymoon, something lacy and pretty and small. I went to the lingerie department of a local store and began to look at all the pretty things offered. So much to choose from. My eye was caught by a silky, long pink number that reminded me of what I had worn on my wedding night. I went over to it, and as I fingered it, I looked up and saw that I was in the Mrs. section of the store. Large sizes, 1X, 2X, 3X, my sizes. I immediately thought, oh brother, page 183, this would look terrible on me. But as soon as I thought it, I felt the invitation of the Holy Spirit to try it on. I felt shy and embarrassed, but was moved by a deeper longing. So I grabbed the nightgown and headed for the dressing rooms. How long had it been since I had purchased something like this for me, for John? More than a decade. I tried on the nightgown with superhuman speed. I gave myself a microsecond glance over and decided to buy it. Now, it was 2 weeks later, and my husband still had not seen it. John and I were going to travel to Boulder, Colorado, where he would perform the marriage ceremony between this young couple. Packing for the trip, the nightgown dared me from the drawer. I sensed God urging me to bring it, to wear it, wear it, offer myself to John, intentionally, vulnerably. So I carefully wrapped the negligee in tissue paper and hid it in my suitcase. I did not pack any backup nightgowns. I was committed. After the rehearsal dinner, John and I returned to our hotel room. Going up the elevator, I was already nervous. Initiating intimacy is not something I do regularly or easily. The nightgown was a clear message that I was initiating. Yikes. John brushed his teeth and then sat on the bed, going over his notes, preparing for the next day. I went into the bathroom to get ready for bed and to change into the slinky number. How I regretted not bringing a backup nightie, my usual well-worn, hefty bag of a nightgown. I was stuck. I had to wear the new Siren song. I brushed my teeth, I brushed my hair, I put it on. I prayed, help me, God. Come into this. Give me courage. Please let this go well. I did not feel sexy or attractive in the least. I was majorly overweight and fighting a losing battle on that front. Accusations flew through my mind that I looked ridiculous, that I was ridiculous. But God was inviting me to come out from under the accusation that froze me and offer to my husband the beauty that I did have. I prayed some more and then walked out the door and stood at the base of the bed. John looked up, surprised, and said, "Oh, pretty." Then he looked back down and went back to his work. Oh my gosh. Page 184. Oh dear. This was not what was supposed to happen. What do I do now? I grabbed a hotel magazine and sat down on my side of the bed. I tried to lounge there seductively. I found that this nightgown wasn't meant for sitting in. It was uncomfortable. I think the point of it is to be worn for as short a time as possible. I was unsure of how to make a further move on my husband and was thankful when the phone rang and John answered it. It was our sons calling, so as I was going to talk with them next, I got back up and went to John's side of the bed and stood, waiting, hoping. John handed me the phone, and this time he did not take his eyes off me, thank God. When I hung up the phone, he put down his papers and responded as I had hoped. It was a truly wonderful night because I offered beauty, heart, and soul, and body. Okay, my turn. John here. This next story took place about 2 months ago in the middle of the night. When I awoke, the clock said 2:30 a.m. I sensed Stasi tossing and turning next to me. We have had a lot of trouble with our sleep over the years, especially since we started Ransomed Heart Ministries. Most of it is spiritual attack. We fought many long, hard battles for our sleep. Sometimes now I even dread bedtime because it has been such a place of combat. A man gets tired of fighting after a while, especially when he doesn't always win. A woman too, let me say. It can feel so emasculating. I'm the idiot. I can't get us protected here. Anyhow, I was lying there awake and I heard Stasi sigh. She did not know I was awake yet. I knew she needed me to intervene, to fight for her, to pray for her. But I was tired of all that. And if it did not work, it would be another defeat. I was feeling deeply ambivalent. Most men wait to move until victory is guaranteed. The moment of truth had come. I could just have rolled over, pretended to be asleep, and Stasi would never had known the difference. Page 185. I took a long, deep breath and let it out slowly. I did not want to be the wimp. So I rolled toward her and asked, "Honey, are you all right?" Most men dread that question because it opens the door into a realm they do not know what to do with. That is why asking the question is such a strong and loving thing to do. The backstory is that Stasi was hurting from some painful wounds delivered through a relationship with a friend. It was 2:30 in the morning and I just wanted to pray for her and try to go back to sleep, but I knew she needed to talk a bit. I could see the tears in her eyes in the moonlight. "Honey, what are you feeling?" I asked, and then I let her talk about it. We processed it together. What we came to was some deep lies she believed about herself. Now, a greater strength was called for. I began to gently but firmly tell her what is true. These are the words of the enemy, sweetheart. This is not true about you. Stasi, you are trying to reason with a demon. It was abrupt, but she saw the lie for what it was. Up to this point, I was tender. Now it was time for me to get fierce. I began to pray over her against the evil one. I was aware now of yet another choice, to offer strength, to sacrifice, because the more I intervened, the more fully and totally awake I became, and my hope of sleep was now gone. I brought the work of Christ against the lying spirits, the accusation, and the assault on our sleep. Several times over, this stuff is like felling a tree. It often takes a number of strong blows. When I finished, I checked back in with Stasi. How are you now? Much better. I sensed she was tender and vulnerable. The moment cried out for a consummation. One more risk. What if she was not in a place for sex? What if it was the wrong call? It was 3:30 in the morning. Maybe she just wanted to go back to sleep. I took her in my arms and initiated lovemaking, telling her all the while how beautiful she truly is. A beautiful night because I offered strength, heart, soul, and body. All this to say, ladies and gentlemen, that if it does not feel risky, you are probably playing it safe. Page 186. The riskiness adds fire to the passion. And I can vouch that rescue sex is better even than makeup sex. Subtitle: Recovering Sexual Joy. The Son of Man came to seek and save what was lost. Luke 19:10. The hopefulness of this promise is like a sunrise. Even as I read it again, having read it many times before, something in my heart quiets down a bit. The clamoring and the fear subside. God is about restoring the very things I care about too. What a relief. We've got big help on our side. He knows something about resurrection. We live in a love story set in the midst of a terrible war. So it should not come as a surprise that our sexuality is often a place of disappointment, sorrow, and loss. Maybe the place. The enemy specializes in wreaking havoc with human sexuality when he wounds a man or woman here. He wounds them about as deeply as they can be wounded. Don't be surprised when your sexual intimacy is opposed. The sanctity of the marriage bed is a war zone. Before marriage, desire and passion don't seem to be a problem. Well, keeping them in check is the problem. But often, after the marriage vows, the passion turns to fear, and the desire turns to hesitation. It is not just your marriage, it is everyone's. Because we are broken people, with often very broken pasts, it can be hard to find consistent, abandoned sexual joy in marriage. But much can be recovered, and much can be healed. And it is worth fighting for. Now, there are many reasons for sexual difficulties, some far more serious than others. Treat this for the beautiful treasure it is. Take it seriously. The help we offer here will take you a long way toward the recovery of deep, mutual sexual pleasure. But the things we speak to in this book may not be the reasons for your sexual struggles. And even if they are, understanding is not the same thing as healing. Clarity does not always bring restoration. You might need professional help. Love your spouse enough to get it. Page 187. Okay, so how do you recover the sexuality of Eden? Heck, how about just the sexuality of any town or village within 100 miles of Eden? It begins by offering strength and beauty outside of the bedroom. The way you live and love in the everyday clears the path to your sexual bower, prepares your heart, and heals your love for one another so that you find yourself craving your spouse. Exactly. The next step can feel enormous. Talk about it. Talk about your sexual life together. Ask your spouse how they are feeling about sex with you, what they enjoy, and what they would love to see happen. Most times, I'm a little shy even to let Stasi see me naked and sexually aroused. For years, we did not talk about our sexuality, but it has been good to venture there and ask, how was last night for you? And what do you enjoy? And even, can I tell you why I haven't seemed interested lately? Talking about your sexual life disarms speculation, the playground of the enemy. It also requires you to sort through your own feelings about your sexuality, which is a very good thing to do. Neglect leaves room for the cobwebs and spiders to move in. Your heart needs to be fully engaged here. If it's not, you want to know why not. Then pray about it. Invite Christ into your sexuality, into your marriage bed. We had to do this for years because so much of our past was hanging over the moment like dark clouds. At first, we each prayed privately, not even knowing the other was praying. Then we grew to the place where we could pray openly about it together. This has been absolutely incredible for us. Just this week, I was feeling that there was too much distance between us, too much awkwardness. Stasi had been experiencing some physical discomfort when we made love. I let the enemy use it to accuse me. But I prayed that Jesus would come and restore our lovemaking, that he would fill it with his grace. Once again, he did. Page 188. Now, many of you were sexually active before marriage. Stasi and I both were. It breaks my heart to say so. There is nothing glorious about it whatsoever, no matter what Hollywood might say. It does such damage. You have to deal with the past in order to take hold of your future. I was introduced to pornography in the 3rd grade. Stasi was sexually abused when she was young. She was raped as a woman of 20. Both of us experienced the sorrow of abortion more than once. You have got to remember this love story is assaulted by evil. But if we can find our way out of such pain, darkness, and sin to a sexuality that is richer and better than ever before, then you can too. You will have to fight for healing and breakthrough. This does not just show up in the mail. The good news is healing and breakthrough are available. Some of that we found through counseling. Some we found through healing prayer. Some came as we fought the enemy, and some came simply as we chose to love one another. We have included a prayer for sexual healing in the back of this book. It's also on their website. Many people have found it very, very helpful. If you have a history of sexual activity outside of marriage, then you will want to pray through this prayer. We know, friends, I'm fine. People keep driving by slow. We know friends who have stopped having sex either because of unresolved issues in their past or because of hard things in the present. We understand. We also think it is a really bad decision. God seems to think it is a really bad decision. The scriptures allow for a time of separation. Sometimes it's called for, but then God says, the husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife's body does not belong to her alone, but also to her husband. In the same way, the husband's body does not belong to him alone, but also to his wife. Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent for a time, so that you might devote yourselves to prayer, then come together again. 1 Corinthians 7, 3-5. Page 189. Do not give up sex unless you both agree by mutual consent, and only for short periods of time. None of this once a year on Valentine's Day sex as a concession stuff. Now, of course, everyone's situation is deeply personal, and there are some relationships where sex has crossed the line into abuse. There is no justification for that. The majority of marriages at some point hit sexual hard times. How do we love during them? Initiate anyway, both of you. Even if you are afraid, even if you are not sure your spouse will respond. As a friend advised a young woman, Sometimes you have to kiss in order to feel like kissing. Sometimes you have to make love in order to feel like making love. When we submit to God's design for marriage, whether we feel it or not, Jesus sets things into motion that we can never imagine or set into motion ourselves. I see what they're saying there, but make sure you're doing it prayerfully. As a woman, I have the enormous joy of being in relationships with a few godly women who are older than I am. One afternoon, in the midst of a deep conversation, a wise woman told me that when her husband expresses a desire to be intimate, she never says no. Never. This brings a story from my program up. She had taken this scripture to heart that her body is not hers alone anymore, but also her husband's. I had read similar advice in a book prior to getting married, and I have tried to follow it as best I could. The thing is, women, as we all know, usually take longer to arouse sexually than men. The encouragement I was given was to respond to my husband's interest in a positive way and trust myself to God and love my man with my body, whether or not I felt like it in that moment. The result has only been good. Okay. It might be helpful for you old-timers to get out of a rut. Change locations, change positions, turn on some music, open a bottle of wine, get away for the weekend to a nice hotel, make out in the woods, find out what it is that arouses your spouse and offer that. I'm going to pause and tell a quick story. So, in my couples and sex course of my marriage and family therapy program, we all had to do like a project research paper of sorts. And one of my fellow classmates, she was married, and similar to what we just read here, she was taught by her mother, to never turn down her man for sex, because if you did, then you're risking him committing adultery, seeking it elsewhere. And so she began doing this experiment with her husband, and then she wrote a paper on it, and she shared it with us in class. But she began experimenting with telling him no, and that evolved into not now. And it was kind of comical because she shared how her husband one day was like literally standing buck naked in the living room, like throwing a tantrum because he couldn't have sex. It's so funny. But she was learning in that now granted, I don't think they had a Christian marriage, and so this could be, I'm just sharing this because this comes to mind, and again, I think this is applicable with God in a Christian marriage, because bottom line, you have to pray and do what the Lord tells you to do, okay? But so she started off telling him no, and then that evolved into not now, because she would literally, she used to just literally drop whatever she was doing to please him. So she would be in the middle of doing dishes, and he would initiate, and she would normally just stop doing dishes and please him right then and there. And so she began saying, not now, let me finish the dishes or whatever, and it was framed in my secular program as, her taking back power in her marriage and all this kind of thing. But I think it's still applicable here in a Christian, Jesus-centered marriage of, if you're not comfortable, there's a reason for that, and you need to pray and discuss that with the Lord. Okay, why am I not comfortable? Why am I not interested? Is there a valid reason for that, or is it just my own fear, my own insecurity, etc.? But has there been abuse going on? Has there been a breach of trust? Whatever, Okay, where were we? Okay. Page 190. What I wish he knew. Ladies, how would you fill in the rest of that? What I want to say to John is this. It is all about foreplay, the tone of your voice, the look in your eye, the gentle pat on the back as you pass by me. The way you cleared the table and dove in to help with the dishes. Your laughter, sitting down next to me and asking me how I'm doing and what I have been thinking about. Reading aloud to me the part in the book that moved you. The tiny ways you convey that you enjoy me. Baby, that's it. My heart is yours. So now, in the bedroom, I'm all yours as well. What I wish she knew. Men, what is it you wish your wife knew? What I want to say to Stasi is this. Where is that negligee? Wear it more often. I love it when you initiate. Wake me up in the night if you want to. I love it when you make me feel like the hero during the day and when you say to me, honey, you are amazing. I want to know what pleases you. I want to know that I please you. I'm going to add some commentary here. So, if you're not already familiar, stuttering, with the 5 love languages, get yourself acquainted with that. Find out your own love languages, find out your spouse's love languages. That right there can cultivate intimacy and comfortability. Is that a word? Comfort in your relationship, build trust, etc. But also, yeah, understand just the psychology of what arouses a woman and turns off a woman, and what arouses a man and turns off a man. Okay. Subtitle, Drink Deeply. Our point is this: do not surrender this precious gift to God. Not until you are forced to, by extreme old age or by some true physical malady. I think he means like as in quitting sex. A good marriage is a place where we are seen and loved, secure in the knowledge that our heart is being trusted as good, thought the best of, and even delighted in. And all that love, trust, and acceptance can find a resting place in the sanctuary of the marriage bed. Indeed, our sexual intimacy is meant to be a place of sanctuary, a place of refuge and safety. Marriage is the relationship that provides the most hope for times of rest, a respite from the world of needing to prove ourselves, from having to work so hard to make ourselves understood and known. Instead, marriage is the place where we are meant to be able to let down and be our truest selves, to be known, loved, and welcomed. In that place, our souls and our bodies can rest into each other's loving embrace. Good sex can be so healing for a marriage. Yes, it can mask other issues, but not for long. Page 191. Sex can flush out what is going wrong in the marriage. You are not having sex. Why not? It has been a long time. Why is that? She doesn't have a desire, or he's not enjoying it. Why? 9 times out of 10, troubles in the bedroom are the flares going up because there are because there are troubles elsewhere in the marriage, where you would be a fool to ignore them. Sexual intimacy in marriage is like fine wine. It gets better with time. Settling into the comfort and security of your spouse's love provides the best couch for intimate pleasure. It takes a while to really know each other. Trust grows over time. So does friendship. The ability to be honest about your sexuality increases as well. It is just too easy to give way here. As with so many areas of life, it is too easy to resign yourself and surrender. I think they mean quit again. Fight for a sexual life with your spouse that is frequent and deeply satisfying for both of you. Take risks, offer strength, offer beauty, be vulnerable, be fully present. That is the way of love, especially in a time of war. As God said, drink deeply, O lovers. And that is the end of chapter 11, the chapter on sex. And I want to just punctuate. So again, if you go get that book, Mars and Venus on a Date, it explains this very well. But, now, I mean, once you're married, not that the pursuit should end. In a sense, it has ended, but in a sense, it never ends, okay? But let's talk about what turns off a woman, okay? A woman, again, she needs to know that she is beautiful, that you delight in her, that she is desirable in your perception, right? And so if you are stonewalling her, which is one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse of divorce by Dr. Gottman, if you are stonewalling her, if you are ignoring her, if you are neglecting her, if you are, just not paying attention, not showing interest, not showing enthusiasm, if you are not pursuing her, if you are not pursuing the relationship, if you are not pursuing her heart, I don't know what other way to articulate it. That is a turnoff. So in that book, Mars and Venus on a Date, he talks a lot about courtship before you're married. And he explains how in a man's mind, not calling a woman for 2 weeks is no big deal. In a woman's mind, she's done with him because now she's completely turned off because he has not been pursuing her. And I can attest to that. I've been in that situation multiple times. It was funny. There was a guy, when I moved from the state that I had previously been in to Colorado, there was a guy that I had recently met. We were kind of interested in each other, and he did exactly that. I think he just kind of dropped off the face of the earth for like a week or two, and that turned me off because he wasn't showing any interest. And then I moved on with my life, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna move to Colorado. And then like a week or two after I moved to Colorado, he contacts me out of nowhere, and he acts like nothing happened, no big deal, and he was confused as to why I was turned off. And I was like, dude, like, you totally dropped off, so this applies both regarding courtship, but also, once you're married, husbands, you do need to be pursuing the heart of your wife, and stonewalling when you just ignore someone is a big destructive weapon. So don't do that. All right. We're almost at an hour. I need to shut up. I bless you all in the name of Yeshua, the Christ of Nazareth. I will be posting this entire book, all 12 or 13 videos as a playlist, right at sundown on Sunday the 25th, Rosh Hashanah, the turn of the Hebrew year, unless something happens in my life that day, because that is technically my birthday. So, but that, I believe, is God's instruction to me, is right at the turn of the Hebrew year at sundown to post this as kind of like a launching thing for the new Hebrew year on this channel. So we got one more chapter left, chapter 12, Learning to Love, and then I think there's a quick little epilogue that I'm going to include in that next video. So I'll be doing that sometime here in the next several days, and then I'll be posting on Sunday. All right, I bless you all in the name of Yeshua, the Christ of Nazareth.